How's it going, guys? I hope everyone has seen the announcement where Jessica Alter is coming. If you didn't know, well, now you know. And oh my god, I am so excited. And like, okay, this is a should you pull video, right? So usually I don't want to contain like too much of a personal preference over like these operators. I want to give them like as a fair share of possible, like going through their actual pros and cons and then like actual like usage. But for me, Jessica Alter actually means a bit more than that because she works really well in IS4. So let's get into it. Should you pull Jessica Alter? And this time around, I can't just give you a straight up answer because it really will depend on your playstyle of Arknights and then what kind of content you enjoy. So I'll have to go through her skills first before I can actually talk about like, do I recommend her to you or not? So let us get on with Jessica Alter. So Jessica Alter, she is the same archetype as Lizcarn, but unlike where you would usually use Lizcarn as more of a SP support, SP battery like we used to back in CC, Jessica is more of a all-rounder, I would say. She has great tanking capabilities and decent damage and crowd control. So let's go through her kit before we talk about her use cases. So first of all, her first talent. She can use a deployable shield for 50 seconds. So the duration of the shield is 50 seconds. It can only be placed up, down, left, right. So the 4 tiles next to Jessica Alter. And once she places you place down the shield, Jessica Alter will turn to the direction where the shield is facing. So if you place it below her, she will face down. If you place it left, it will change the original direction where the operator was deployed. So this is actually a really interesting mechanic and yeah, our first, but also there are some other effects that will not be cancelled like this by this, like the wind tunnel effect. It will follow the direction that your operator was deployed, so you can change it afterwards, and then you will still get the buff or the debuff from the wind tunnel no matter which direction you point her shield to, and then no matter where she turns later on. It's the initial deployment that actually matters. So you can still deploy the shield against the wind even though it might not be as good, and then later on when you want to let her deal some damage to other enemies, you can change it to the other direction. So that's kind of an interesting mechanic, I would say. The shield has a 30-second redeployment time. It has like, I think 3,800 HP and 755 defense at E290. It does scale with her level though, so the higher the level, the better it is. Now, her second talent, and then when you put down the shield, this is still the first talent, the shield will put her behind it, right? So she and the unit behind her will get plus 15% defense. It will be plus 18% at pot 3. Now, her second talent is that when the shield takes damage, there's a 50% chance for Jessica to recover 1 SP. Goes to 55% at pot 5, and I don't even know if you guys remember, but Lin has a similar talent, but because she's a high ground operator, the chance of her getting hit is actually way lower, so it kind of felt a bit useless at 50%, and then it went on higher with the module, which is why we all recommend Lin module. It's because it actually makes her like way more usable, right? But with the shield, if you use the shield to block enemies, like a fast attacking one, it kind of acts as an SP battery for her. So instead of Lizcarn, you just use her as her own SP battery, which is kind of interesting and actually usable, except that there are some situations that you will get extra benefit from using the shield during skill durations, and it kind of hurts that part. So it will depend on the situation. It's a case-by-case scenario, not just use it and then just stack up your skill. Because don't forget, it is also a 2 block. So if you want, Jessica Alter can actually provide 5 block on her own. So if you have an agent, that will decrease your block and a 3 block enemy coming by, right? Those two combinations working together is usually really nasty. While Jessica can just use the shield to block the agent, that decreases your block, and then herself can block the 3 block enemy, or you can let the shield tank some physical damage enemies, but because the shield has 0 resistance, you want Jessica herself to actually tank the resistance, the arts damage enemies, since she can be healed. The shield can only be healed by operators like Sculptor, Perfumer, you know, those like mud rock type, basically. Those that cannot be healed. So, you know, there's a lot of ways that you can work around with this shield, and it's really just a really versatile talent. Don't forget, this is just the talent. It's not even her skill yet. This is her skill. So, her first skill is an infinite duration skill. It will take up to 70 seconds to charge up at M3. She will have up to plus 70% attack. Her and the shield both have plus 70% defense. Remember, the shield already has like 700 defense, so this goes to like over 1,000 defense on the shield alone. And the shield duration will be increased by 30%, but already lasts 50%. And remember how I mentioned how the shield cannot be healed? So even if it goes to 80 seconds duration, what benefit do you get? Because most of the time the shield will just break before then. So that's really up to you. Personally, I think this is not that useful of a skill. I wouldn't really bother with it. If you're a brand new player and you're coming into the game, I would still highly recommend you to go to E1 Jessica Alta and then just use skill 2 instead of skill 1, because there's also a thing where in the early game, right, if you put down a defender, it's usually at the latest, right? You put down all your high ground operators and then you use your tank at the last, so they bait all the range damage. But because you need at minimum 70 seconds to charge up this skill, you have to put her down early. And that also means she cannot bait those, she cannot taunt the range enemies. Kind of pointless and kind of defeats the purpose of a defender. So yeah, I really wouldn't go with this skill. Her second skill is a bit more interesting. I should have M3'd this, to be honest, but it is what it is. So skill 2, her attack area will be increased to a shotgun sniper operator area, and she will have up to plus 75% attack, and her attack interval is decreased by 0.9 seconds, and she will gain 75% physical and arts dodge, not true damage. So the initial SP will also go up to 25 SP, and the cost will go down to 30 SP. So that only takes 5 seconds to charge up instead of 15. So that actually makes this kind of like Surtur, if you consider that. You can just put her down 5 seconds, use her skill, and then she will basically be invincible for the 15-second duration. Actually, really interesting skill, and the damage is pretty good. You can use it to take down like low defense bosses, like, I don't know, Frost Nova. So with this skill, I would actually highly recommend a lot of beginners to grab, because it does provide a good amount of total amount of damage. It's just that when you're fighting against like high defense enemies like down the game, it kind of gets a bit weaker. But as a IS4 starter, as an example, it's also pretty good. Now, skill 3 is where the most difficult mechanic comes in. So first of all, she will gain +1 attack range and have increased attack interval by 0.6 seconds during the skill duration. Her attack is increased by 310%, defense increased by 80%, and the shield has increased 170% defense. I think that's like over 1800 defense or something like that. It is crazy amount of defense on a shield. And if you activate the skill when the shield is already on the field, she will immediately fire a cannon, and then if the cannon hits the enemy or reaches like 3 tiles ahead, it will immediately explode and deal AoE damage of 250% of her attack as physical damage and stun all enemies for 6 seconds. Now, the explosion area is similar to Horn skill 1, if I recall correctly. That's a similar thing. So the interesting thing about this skill is if you use the skill and then deploy the shield, she will change her direction and then fire towards that direction. So if you were facing left and then you want to deploy the shield down, you want to shoot down, you just deploy the shield downwards and then she will shoot downwards, which is really interesting. But also, if there are situations where if you're facing, let's say, if you're facing left and then there's a high ground or an undeployable tile there, but there's an other tile that you can deploy the shield, you can choose to deploy the shield, and then before the shooting animation occurs, you treat the shield immediately. Most likely you will want to have you would want to do it on emulator because you can pause deploy and whatnot. It makes it a lot more easier, but it's doable without pause deploy. So if you do that, if you retreat the shield, so let's say if you put the shield downwards but retreat it immediately, she will cancel the animation and shoot left, which is your initial facing direction. This is actually a really interesting mechanic, and I would highly recommend a lot of people to like master this if you want to use it in like IS4, because it is actually really useful in IS4. But that being said, do I really like this skill? I do. It provides a lot of damage and crowd control once every 30 seconds. And because the skill has 20 ammo, right? And you can choose to end the skill, but you have 20 ammo. And the attack interval is increased. If you choose to shoot a cannon immediately, explosive immediately, and then retreat the shield, you can actually use it twice within the 30-second duration of the skill. Oh wait, within like 30 seconds of the shield's redeployment time. So you can use it indefinitely if your ammo just doesn't run out. Actually really useful considering that it is 6 seconds of AoE stun each time you use it. So it's a 6 second stun once every 30 seconds. If you think about it that way, this skill is actually really, really good. Now, one other thing is that I think there's a way to charge your cannon to have 2 charges at a time, but I don't really remember how I do it. I've heard of it, but I haven't done it really myself. So that's really up to you to figure it out, or you can search it up. I'm pretty sure there's a way. But that being said, Jessica Alta, a really interesting operator. She has your typical tankiness because with her skill 3, she has like increased 80% defense. With her 776 base defense, that is like over 1,000 defense as well. Her shield is super tanky. She can provide 5 blocks by herself, and then you can block 2 lanes at once if the 2 lanes are joined together, and you just put her shield down in like a top or bottom lane or lane next to her. She can block 2 lanes by herself, and then when you gather enough enemies, just shoot out a cannon, activate skill 3, shoot out a cannon, boom, AoE damage. Really, really interesting operator to use. So now it comes down to my recommendations. First of all, if you're a beginner player, I would highly recommend you to grab Jessica Alta because I think she's a really versatile defender operator for a beginner, and like because you just barely started the game, right? You don't have all these like fancy E2, Lunar, Texas Alta, all these like really cool operators, and I would think she's like a really good defender to have to do like some range attacks. And then she does some tanking. She does just a lot of stuff in one package. Now, if you're just an old player and you're thinking, oh, I'm just using it for like future events, you don't really do like those permanent modes, you don't do CC, you don't do much SSS, you don't do IS, I actually wouldn't recommend you to use her if you are not typically a defender user. Even if you're a defender user, like Hoshiguma does the job just fine with her skill 2, so I don't really see a point in you grabbing Jessica Alta if you already have like other damage dealers like Manar, your whatever, like your typical damage dealer, right? She doesn't really improve that much over your typical defender other than a tiny bit more damage. So I wouldn't really recommend you to pull her in that sense. If you're an SSS player, I'm not liking her with SSS that much, to be honest. I think like if you really just want to tank, you can just bring other defenders. You don't really need to use her, but yeah, you can do just without her. I would feel like there's really no point in grabbing her. But if you're an IS4 player like myself, or even just future IS players, I would highly recommend you to grab Jessica Alta because she does so many roll with one package, and with IS you have so little hope to grab operators. It's actually really worthy to grab her. Now, as for CC, from what I've heard, she's not that good in CC as of right now. I think there is potential in her because she does provide 2 blocks, but with CC tags, you can actually nerf her down really badly because shield redeployment time can also be affected by CC tag, so it may come down to like not much at all. You might just not be able to redeploy her shield at all when she dies, before she dies. So in the end, I think who should really pull this operator is two types of people. If you're a beginner, or if you're a heavy IS player. Also, I don't want to talk about too much spoilers, but she'll get a module within like 6 months from now because CN just got it. But she will be able to gain unveiling invisibility with her module within for enemies within her attack range. So if you're interested in that, she's also a good choice, but you don't really need that effect as much outside of IS. So that is that. That's about it of what I have to say about Jessica the Liberated. Yeah, I hope you guys have a better understanding of Jessica Alter and you have hence made up your mind if you want to pull her or not. Tell me about your decision down in the comments below. I would really like to hear about it. And I'll see you guys in the next video, which is most likely going to be an IS4 video because I have a few topics that I want to touch upon with IS4. So I'll see you guys then. Bye.